It's a lovely evening. Welcome to it. This is Beyond the Headlines. I'm your host. My name is Peter Zulu. I'm filling in for Kwanguli, where we're still away in New York. And we are live on multiple platforms. You can get us live on Facebook right now on Hot FM Zambia, DSTV channel 912, and GoTV channel 301. Those are the lines that, those are the platforms, I beg your pardon, that you can use to listen to Beyond the Headlines this evening. And this evening we're joined by PF presidential aspirant, Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba joins us on the show this evening. Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Headlines.
Hey, thank you, Peter, and thank you. Good morning, good evening to our dear listeners and those joining us on social media.
All right, so today we're going to mainly focus on the patriotic front. So much has been happening in the party, and we're going to focus on that a lot on the show. I just want to encourage you watching us live right now that you can send your advance questions. If you have any question for Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba, you feel free to do so on our social media platforms. We'll open the phone lines a little later on the show. But for those of you that have advanced questions, feel free to do that. For those of you listening to us and want to tweet us in, at Hot877 Zambia is our Twitter handle. Ambassador, let's begin here. The PF is due to hold an elective general conference next month, which will see a new president being elected and other positions too. What is the current status as far as hosting the conference is concerned?
So in December, we made critical decisions. We recognized that our party constitution, which is 20-year-old, was not adequate to manage the conference, number one. Number two, take us forward. Number three, looking at the general circumstances where we've been in existence for the last 20 years. 10 years was spent in opposition, 10 years in government. There have been various changes and dynamics. So the Central Committee decided that we should attend to the Constitution first and called for a constitutional conference, a process that is now underway. We already have almost a draft constitution because the process was started by both Honorable Winter Kavimba and taken over by Brian Mundubile, who was then chairperson for legal, and now it has gone to Mr. George Sangawa, MP for Lukasha in Kasama, who's our MCC chair for legal. We gave ourselves that we need to attend to this constitutional conference, host a constitutional conference before we go to general conference. And we said possibly end of February, let's hold the constitutional conference to attend to the constitution, deal with these amendments, so that we stick to the calendar that we should have a general conference extraordinary general conference by March 2023.
Are you still on course?
Almost on course. We'll see at our next meeting to see the progress that will have been made to the preparations both for the draft constitution and our work towards hosting a constitutional conference first before we can have the general conference end of March. All things being equal, we should host the two conferences just in the next 1.5 months.
Should people brace themselves for a postponement if anything happens beyond your control? Should I put it in inverted commas?
I think process is far better than just any outcome, than any rush. So I think the Central Committee recognizing that there are challenges. If we went to conference now using the old constitution, for example, some candidates will be bad. They will not be eligible. And that might spell doom to a party because they might feel disenfranchised. Their followers might not understand. So we want an inclusive process that brings everyone on board. That ensures that when we have a general conference, there'll be no one who will use it as an excuse, for example, to cause splinter parties or breakaway. We think that if the process is fair, if the process is inclusive, and every candidate who's eligible is eligible to participate, the outcome will be better. And also, you have to have this conference that prepares for 2026. Whoever emerges as party president could be our candidate in 2026, or you have to prepare around 2026. So a lot of articles were identified, up to 72 articles that require attention, including just these that I've highlighted.
Why are you making these amendments at this time? Is it because some people that are looked at as PF bigwigs do not qualify on this, current constitution? Don't you think this was done to protect the party in some way in the past?
All rules are made for a purpose, and we've just recognized that our constitution is weak. That is why as soon as President Michael Sata won elections, he commissioned a constitutional review process that was undertaken by Honorable Winter Kabimba. When President Lungu also won elections, one of the first things the party did was to complete the process of the constitution because it's defective in many ways. Let me cite one example. There's a clause we have in the constitution, although never practiced, that senior government officials and administrative positions should be held by party members. Now, that's discriminatory because those positions belong to Zambia. The party doesn't deploy people, for example, permanent secretaries. It picks on merit. So there are clauses like that are retrogressive. And you should also remember the circumstances under which that constitution was made. Mr. Sata was national secretary for MMD. Mwanawasa was picked. Barely 30 days, I think 40 days before elections. And Mr. Sata had to create a political party, register it, and participate in that election. So it was a constitution.
Was it hurried or it was emotional?
It was both. It was both, because the circumstances under which Mr. Sata found himself. And if you speak to the founders who registered the party, like Edwin Nifokelo, they'll tell you that they just got a unique constitution and made some changes, and that's what formed the PF constitution. So there's been general recognition that the constitution is not durable. It might not create outcomes that are credible. It doesn't promote internal democracy. It vests a lot of powers around the president. For example, the president can elect a secretary general. Many political parties require that a secretary general is elected. This is just to strengthen autonomy and independence in these internal institutions. So that was the purpose. In their wisdom, the Central Committee, which I support, was that let's us tend to the Constitution first. If we go to conference like this, we might be spelling disaster for ourselves.
Some circles have said that you as a PF are dilly-dallying with this, process or the issue to do with your conference deliberately, just to buy yourselves time, because you haven't really or fully identified which leaders you want to, unveil as the next leader of the PF to succeed President Edgar Lungu. Or there's even speculation that President Edgar Lungu might be coming back in 2026.
Yeah. So let me start with the first question. When you lose elections, you have to do a postmortem. The postmortem informs you why you lost elections. Where were the weaknesses of the party? Where were the weaknesses of your policies? How were the structures working? What led to the losses? I think that's a process we've been dealing with, of postmortem after the loss of elections. We recognize that we had a broken relationship with Zambians. There was issue of cadreism, political violence, issues of corruption, issues of arrogance. So we've been dealing with all those, because you have to do what we call rebranding. Rebranding means the brand is not good. The brand is damaged. So you have to rebrand. And that is a process. Because we've said it so many times, people might lose track of what rebranding simply means. Rebranding simply means you recognize all your weaknesses, promote your strengths. Our strength is that we are the largest political party in this country, even beating the UPND, although we lost elections. You can call Shangombo today, you find the PF leader and PF members. You can call Zambezi, you can call Nakonde, you can call Chama, you can call Chipata, anywhere. That is not the same even for the UPND. So it's the largest political party in Zambia. We are the second largest opposition in parliament. And then we've lost elections. And there are all these dynamics that have emerged because you are no longer in power. So there's that recognition. Is President Edgar Lungu coming back? He's made it very clear that he has retired. He's waiting for us to have a general conference and hand over to whoever the party will elect as a leader. Does the party have a leader who can lead it? Of course. You've seen a reservoir of presidential candidates. Look at all of us. For example, the 8 of us. You look at Dr. Chitalo Shilufia, you look at Brian Munduvile, you look at Mutotwe Kafwaya, you look at Chimbaka Mbwili, you look at Mao Sampa, you look at all of us. We are capable leaders. Any of us can be a leader of the PF. Any of us can be a Republican president. So we are not short of leaders. But we just have to be careful that the process, first, we've recognized that this is just not an intra-party process. This is a process that Zambians are looking at, because Zambia is a democracy. The ruling party and opposition are part of that democracy. So we are an entity part of democracy, and it's just not about the PF. It's also about Zambia and Zambians.
I want to, just shed some light on the recent happenings. Obviously, President Galungu was seen in public. He's barely in public. Obviously, since he left office, you barely see him. Then we see him in public, obviously showing solidarity to his family, going to answer a few questions in front of authorities. After that, straight to the supermarket to buy or check on prices of goods and services. That really, didn't sit well with some members of the UPND and government.
Yeah, it cannot. Let's start with the principle. Treat former presidents well. Our constitution recognizes that. That's why it confers constitutional immunity on the former president. The current president and former presidents cannot be prosecuted without following laid down procedure. The founders of this country, the crafters of our constitution, have all recognized that former presidents have a special place and proceeded to confer on them constitutional immunity. That should be our state. The threats that comes against former presidents, where the incumbents jittery about them, therefore decide to attempt to destroy them, should come to an end. We saw this with, Kaunda perceived Chiluba, who was leading the largest trade movement in this country, as possible successor. He mistreated him, abused him, locked him up for 8 months. When Chiluba became president, he locked up KK during that Christmas period over the coup allegations. When Mwanawasa became president, he harassed Chiluba, lumped corruption allegations against him. When Sata became president, Rupia Banda was also put the same way. Look at what is happening to Edgar Lungu by President Hakainde Hichilema. This should come to an end. First, it destabilizes the country. It promotes division in the country. I was ambassador at the African Union. This is something we study. That is why if there's an election, we worry about the post-electoral process. That is why when Edgar Lungu lost, the first thing you saw them, they were at a former president with other former presidents from Africa, speaking to the two, both the winner and the loser. It's extremely important that former presidents are looked after and kept well. Okay. Allow them to allow them to do their job.
But expand on this. What is really going on with President Edgar Lungu? Because you've compared his situation to situations that we've seen. President Kaunda thrown in prison. President Chiluba went and faced those charges. President Banda, immunity stripped.
So
President Kaunda, all those you've mentioned, there's a direct case against them.
Yeah.
But what is President Edgar Lungu? Why are you saying he's being mistreated?
They've called his wife. When they call your spouse, they try to seize the properties belonging to your spouse. They call your children for over 1.5 years to the police, to the Joint Investigation Commission. What are they doing? They are harassing you through your children. I remember that the first time I saw Dr. Chiluba cry was when they arrested his spouse, Regina. So it affects you directly. I am not saying former presidents, whilst holding office, should act with impunity. No. I'm contrasting it against a larger principle: peace and security and stability in the country. Former presidents are institutions, they've been presidents. And we have seen this trend, and we've been speaking against it, where you saw in Angola, Lorenzo harassed the former president, Dos Santos. Dos Santos even fled, was in Portugal, and they had to bring a dead body to Angola. We're not happy with, speaking now as a former diplomat, of what is happening in Botswana. Masisi and Ian Kama and fighting so hard. Cyril Ramaphosa and Jacob Zuma fighting so hard. Tshisekedi and Kabila literally pitted against one another. Those things are extremely dangerous for those countries, especially for fragile democracies. And like I said, I prefaced my comments in Zambia. That is why we confer constitutional immunity on the former president.
Okay. I want to bring up a point that I want to get your reaction to what Chief Government Spokesperson Chusi Kasanda said earlier today. She had a presser alongside the Minister of Finance, Honorable Stumba Komsokotwane. And at that presser, she said that President Edgar Lungu should work with government instead of criticizing government, and he should honor invitations when he's called upon.
So they should stop harassing him, number one. Set up his office of the sixth president. He's provided for in the constitution. Allocate him land, allocate him all his benefits. They are constitutional. You are not doing him a favor. They are provided for in the constitution. Allow him to travel. Present his name. Africa has 23 elections this year. Which one is Edgar Lungu monitoring? That is pushed by the current government. I was at the AU. I knew a year before we were given a calendar. We proposed certain names and certain countries that President Rupia Banda could go and monitor. It's pre-planned. It's a work of government. Promote his office of the sixth president. You just can't come after harassing him. You issue a letter of invitation to a state dinner or to a state luncheon. That's mockery. Attend to the fundamentals. Respect the office, establish the office, allow the office to operate, give him all his assistance. Let Zambians know, if I want to see the sixth president, let them know which office he is. Let them know his administrators. Let them walk there and see him. And then government, like I told you, 23 elections, they are run by former presidents. It's the current government that pushes for that kind of work at the UN, peace mission. Edgar was champion of against gender-based violence and early marriages. There are many conferences that are going on across the world. It is you, government, and your missions in New York and in Addis Ababa to push for the president for those. Engage him in his work. Africa admires Zambia. Here is an incumbent who loses elections. An incumbent loses elections. He's commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He presides over, he appoints ECZ and all their commissioners, but loses elections and hands over power to the opposition leader. That story is very rare in Africa. Rarely do an opposition in Africa win elections and actually get it. In Zambia, we've done it 3 times. We are so admired. Of these 23 elections happening in Africa, imagine there's a ruling party president who has lost power. Who best can speak to such a person other than Edgar Lungu? Who can tell him his scenario? That Bwana na mulusa my elections. What you can do is respect the will of the people. It's not about you. The people have spoken against you. Respect the will of the people and grow your institutions. Let them be durable. Respect your independent electoral commission. Don't incite the army or the police to cancel the elections or refuse results. Who else can do that other than a gentleman like Edgar Lungu?
Okay.
So these are assets in Africa, and we should deploy and use them properly.
All right, I want to go back to the PF now. About a fortnight ago, Material Member of Parliament, Mao Sampa, was suspended from the party's Central Committee, a decision which has, he challenged in the courts of law and whose outcome went in his favor as well. Was the suspension a ploy to disadvantage him, bearing in mind that this is only happening as we saw it happen in when he attempted to vie for the same position as party president in 2015 following the death of President Michael Sata? Is history trying to repeat itself here, Mr. Mwamba?
No, not at all. First of all, the Central Committee has not approved any campaign guidelines. They've not issued guidelines to us of what we can do, what we can't do. The rules for our campaigns and our engagement of members of parliament and party structures is not yet out. It hasn't been tabled yet because we were discussing the issue of the constitution. We are supposed to issue a formal electoral rules, set up a committee that supervises elections. We should be given guidelines on how to engage, what to speak about. Because remember, we are all promoting unity in all this, and only one person can win an election out of all the candidates that will participate. So there are supposed to be rules. So in the absence of these rules, people have been conducting informal campaigns. You've seen posters flying around. You've seen all of us on radio and TV. You've seen some candidates tour the country. But that's all been informal. The Central Committee has been very lenient, recognizing that these campaigns remain informal until we issue guidelines. Honorable Mal Sampa, a dear friend of mine, had a press conference. At the press conference, there are things that even me, as a presidential candidate, can't say, as a member of the Patriotic Front, can't say. Whatever I say has to build the party.
What is it that he said? Just there, what is it that he said that you can say?
First of all, I can't attack my party, number one. I can't denigrate my party and its policies. I have to promote the policies. Even when I recognize the weaknesses, for example, if I'm condemning cadreism, I have to provide a solution because I'm building the party. If I'm condemning corruption, I have to recognize that and build the party. Whatever we utter, whatever we say, must build the party, not put the party in ridicule, not put the party in disrepute. So there were some utterances. I can't go in details because these matters are in court, but I can speak superficially.
Okay.
So there are some matters that we're not comfortable with, and the Central Committee put that matter on the agenda. And the goodness is Honorable Mal Sampa attended the Central Committee. When that matter came up, they didn't even ask him to leave. He saw the people that raised the concerns, that cited the specific remarks that had made, that had injured both members and the party. He was part of the meeting, and he was allowed to speak, and he apologized for those remarks. And however, the acting president, as presidential powers, he said, I'm still going to deal with this matter. Hence, the action the acting president took. And in my view, the action by the acting president was extremely lenient. I think he took into consideration the occurrences in the Central Committee where even Honorable Mal Sampa proceeded to apologize. And the matter was literally settled. So even the punishment was symbolic. Suspension for 6 weeks. Mal Sampa retained his position and his membership in the Central Committee and in the party. It was a suspension for 6 weeks.
I ask you this, if this is, the history repeating itself, because we also heard a voice note from a PF member, Mr. Stadi Mwale, who was threatening violence. And earlier on, you did mention that the party is going through a rebranding process, and we need to remind the country every now and then that the PF is rebranding. Does that put a dent in this whole rebrand and the whole race to be PF president with these elements of what you'd want to say the former PF was, but they're still there?
Yeah, so the parties, like I said, it's the largest party in the country. We are still dealing with issues. What Honorable Stadi Mwale stated, is former provincial chair for Copperbelt and his former permanent secretary, is quite senior, although he doesn't hold any position currently, could be regrettable, but it doesn't represent the position of the party. That was not Honorable Nixon Chilangwa. It was not Given Lubinda who said that. It's one of our members, and I think that maybe the leadership on the Copperbelt will speak to Honorable Stadi Mwale about those concerns. However, people, and that's why the PF is such a family, people are emotional about the PF. They are personal about the PF. They regard it as their party. Speak to any member of the PF wherever they are. They are so personal about it. It's not an affiliation that is distant. So we have to manage those emotions, especially as leaders.
What did the Central Committee, decide? Are they going to take any action against Mr. Mwale for threatening violence against another member of the party?
Like I said, he's not holding any senior position.
But he's a member of the party. But he's an ordinary member of the party.
Maybe in the place where he is, they can start a process. Because, Central Committees at the apex, it doesn't deal with local issues and local leadership. Because it has to be brought by the structure. If there are those concerns, we recognize that Honorable Mal Sampa reported the matter to the police, but we hope as family that we can resolve these issues amicably as a family. And notwithstanding that we could be emotional about the PF, but let's guard ourselves. We're in a rebranding process. Let's abandon some old ways of doing things. Is matters repeating themselves now? like I said, I'm a sincere friend to Honorable Mwamba. I don't think there's any conspiracy against him or to stop him. The issue of the conference, remember, I laid out the calendar. We have the Constitutional Conference to deal with first before we go to General Conference. So his fears are not founded. You said he won in court. So what happened is, in court he got what we call an ex parte order. So this is an order you get without the other party. That's why it's called ex parte order. So there's an inter-party hearing tomorrow where the PF will present its case and hope that from, after tomorrow the judge can resolve and we go back to what we know best, reorganize and rebuild the party.
Does this situation have any, bearing on the hosting of the convention next month?
No, it has no effect whatsoever, even on the running of the party. Even if you stop Given Lubinda from being acting president, Given Lubinda is vice president and he has vested powers. Even if you stop Nixon Chilango as acting secretary general, he is deputy secretary general and can function. If we want to have a central committee meeting tomorrow, we can have and decide and determine issues. In my view, there is no power vacuum in any way. The party will run and is running, and the party will not be destabilized in any way. We are just focused on rebuilding the party. We recognize, for example, the rights of Honorable Mwamba and the action he has taken is within his rights and doesn't injure us in any way. It's just that we are not understanding ourselves anyway, and he has chosen to get an independent arbiter in this process, which is a court. But I hope that we can resolve these issues and go back to speaking to Zambians and to Zambian issues.
Okay, I know that internal party wrangles have been part and parcel of most political parties in Zambia. For instance, during the 2015 PF conference, there were pockets of violence, and the method of electing the president was a matter of controversy, as most delegates did not agree with the raising of hands as not being the transparent method. How different will this conference be next month?
Well, even the conference in 2015, sometimes 2014, 2015 is scandalized when not. Even the raising of hand as a history in why it was done in the manner that it was done. No delegate. In fact, we had a delegation list, because remember the acting president then was Guy Scott, and he had submitted a delegation list. He had deployed the police. He even deployed the police at the Mulungushi International, at the Mulungushi Rock of Authority, Mulungushi University, as it is. He's the one that provided the list to the police. The police were ticking whoever was coming in the conference. No illegal person came and no one was bad. That conference went very well, but it's past. Will things repeat themselves? I think this is what we are trying to avoid. The leadership is extremely lenient. I just demonstrated that there's no calendar out for campaigns, but people are campaigning. In normal circumstances, they will have attracted sanctions. But the party is extremely lenient. We recognize the circumstances under which we are. And that's why we encourage your presidential candidates to speak the good of the party, provide checks and balances to government, and look at building. There is no contest even amongst ourselves that should destroy us. The contest amongst ourselves should actually unite us. And you do see us, if any of our candidates is affected, you see everyone else come around. The recent one is Honorable Chimbaka, who was picked by the police for issues of unlawful assembly. And you saw the presidential candidates come and meet at police station Chimbaka. For me, that's a spirit that we should be promoting. That's a spirit that, as a family, we should move together despite our differences and despite our political interests.
Okay. The PF as a party boasts of upholding diversity. However, 8 candidates have so far expressed interest to vie for the party's top job. Of those, only 1 candidate is from Western Province, while the rest are either from Luapula or Northern Province. What does this tell you about the party's tolerance, diversity, worse off? I know there was a woman that was interested in vying for the presidency, but we don't know where she stands now. So I would say there's no woman amongst the 8 that have shown interest.
The answer is very simple. The process is open. we had the deadline, we had nomination fees of 200,000 kwacha. When the 8 filed, we reopened the process. It was reopened in December, and it is open-ended. We are not closing it. So whoever wishes to stand, whether you are a member from Mongu, from Choma, wherever you are, and you think that you can lead the party, you are encouraged to. There is no closing. There is no deliberate ploy to invite certain candidates. Those candidates are there not because of their tribe, because they are credible leaders who can lead this country.
Okay. During the last memorial of the late President Sata, Catholic priest Father Godwin challenged the PF to go back to the Zambian people and apologize for the wrongs that the party did to the Zambians while in power. Did you take on, the challenge as the PF? Have you gone back to apologize to the Zambians? And if so, have you, if not, then why haven't you done so?
So the first memorial that occurred in October 2021, shortly after we lost power, President Edgar Lungu apologized to the party and to the country for omissions and commissions and things that didn't go well in the country and for mistakes that the Patriotic Front could have made. From that day, all of us, I think in our various capacities, we've apologized to Zambians, for example, for cadarism. There was no need for that kind of violence, political violence in by-elections. There was no need for our people to be inconvenienced during, maybe if the PF has a function, they disrupt traffic. There was no need for those things. We've apologized. But alongside, we speak of the successes of the PF, that it did its job very well in the last 10 years that it held power. It built hospitals, it built schools, it built airports, international airports, it built flyover bridges, it resolved the long-standing issue of load shedding, where we spent almost $4 billion into new power stations, hence no load shedding. So the PF did a fantastic job. In fact, it comes on record as a party that worked but lost elections because of peripheral issues such as cadarism, violence, intolerance, and arrogance. Peripheral issues, not to the core work of government. To the core work of government, there was utmost good delivery.
Okay. I want to invite, the listeners to be part of this conversation. Give us a call, 0974-870-877, 0974-870-877, or 0950-955-877. You can give us a call if you have a question or contribution. We have Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba in studio, ready to tackle your questions or contributions. It's 0974-870-877. Good evening.
Good evening, PZ.
Evening to you. What's your name?
Howard.
Howard, please go ahead. We have Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba in studio.
Good evening, Ambassador Mwamba.
Hey, Howard, good evening.
Evening. I like the way you're bringing out the points, the way you're talking. You're so sober, you're so calm. That's how it's supposed to be.
Thank
and
you.
I like the way also PZ is firing questions to you. I think that at the same time is trying to expose what wrong the party was doing and what you guys are supposed to do if you are to run the party. So my encouragement to you, Ambassador Mwamba, is that just keep up the same spirit. One Zambia, one nation. The UPND now are in government, but as Zambians, we should look to it that we work together. Because Zambia is not for the PF, and I want to make this thing clear. I'm a young Zambian. I want to make this thing clear on radio. Zambia is not for the PF, or neither is it for the UPND. Zambia is for Zambians. So let us just unite. Let us have one language full of peace and love, and see that our country goes forward. I wish you my blessing in whatever you're trying to achieve. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Howard. We'll pick up another call. It's 0974-870-877, 0950-955-877. We'd like to hear from you this evening. Hello, good evening.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Am I clear?
Yes, you're very clear. What's your name?
Yes, you are talking to Anmutemba from this compound.
Please go ahead.
For me, Comrade Mwamba, I've got a question. This issue that we are hearing, like, ISS wanapasa government business to his own company. Is it really true? Because I've heard a lot of people are saying that no, you stopped working for that company. No, you are trying to ridicule the president. Please, can you where we want to know where this story stands? Because if it is true, Bwana, it's a scandal. You must resign. Thank you very much, guys.
All right, thank you very much. We'll pick up one more call, then I'll allow Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba to respond to your questions and contributions. It's 0974 870 877. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening to you. What's your name?
Victor is my name.
All right, Victor, please go ahead. We have Ambassador Mwamba in studio.
Yes. I'm following Ambassador Mwamba. He's speaking very well, but then there's an issue where he mentioned why Honorable Miles Sampa was suspended. Is to say he ridiculed the party in some way or in another, I don't know, whatever he said. But if I remember very well, we had Ambassador Mwamba on the same platform, or maybe not on Hot FM, but somewhere he was being interviewed where somehow also we feel he ridiculed the party as well. Because there was an issue he mentioned when he was ambassador in South Africa. We were experiencing a lot of load shedding in this country. I can't remember which year was that, but some 3-4 years ago. And then there was power arranged by him, where he even followed the president, the former president of South Africa, to Nkandil House, where he organized or negotiated for cheaper power. But then the powers that be that we had, the previous government of His Excellency, the former president, Edgar Lungu, to his surprise, they organized very expensive power from, I don't know, wherever they organized it, instead of the cheap power from South Africa. So don't you think that was also a ridicule in some way of a political party where he belongs?
Okay.
And why wasn't he suspended?
All right, Victor, thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you.
All right, let's start with Victor.
Let me start with Victor. I think Victor has raised very important issues. Yes, Victor, and thank you for recollection of matters. We had a huge power crisis in 2015, one of the worst drought affected in 30 years. And we had power deficit and load shedding of up to 12 hours. As an ambassador in South Africa at the time had excess power. You know, they have huge generation capacity of up to 58,000 megawatts. And I negotiated for about 300 megawatts. And we involved the head of state, because, you know, this is a head of state issue, who spoke to his counterpart. And the president proceeded to send a minister of energy at the time, Honorable Doris Leah, who came during a Christmas period, and South Africa takes Christmas period very seriously. But we had to draw the president from his holiday home, and he came to State House, and we had that meeting, and power was given. And along the way, it was we later learned that the power was not taken because of a power ship from Mozambique. It's something I've written about. It's something I passionately felt totally disappointed. I've discussed this matter several times to highlight that, yes, there could have been corruption, there could have been political violence, there could have been cadreism. But what should we do? We should become better, learn lessons. Zambians see these things. But I will not say in a manner that destroys my party. I will say it in a manner that builds my party. And Victor, like I said, the matter is in court, so I can't go in particular details, because these matters are for the preserve of the judge, who should hear both the issues that Honorable Miles Sampa has raised and the issue that our lawyers on behalf of the party who raise. There is nothing wrong with talking about the weaknesses of the party. If there was corruption, we admit there's no way we're going to make a correction.
And that's his argument, Ambassador. Didn't you ridicule your party in the same way that Miles has ridiculed the party? Why weren't you suspended and he's been suspended?
That's what I'm saying. I'm restrained to discuss the particular details.
Let's not talk about Miles. Let's talk about you.
Well,
why do you think you are not, you're being treated differently in a way compared to Miles? Because there's now like a trace of how Miles is somewhat being victimized from 2015, and you somewhat ridiculed the party, but you know, went scot-free.
So no, I didn't ridicule the party. Let's make it very clear. On all my TV, radio, social media engagements, I recognize the weaknesses the party had. If it's cadreism, and I propose a solution. If it's corruption, I propose a solution. I stand on an agenda. For example, an anti-corruption agenda, and I've demonstrated wherever I've been. I conduct audits. You know, I ensure that before I take an office, I clean up. I don't tolerate in my procurement processes any acts of corruption. I speak against corruption consistently. So, from wherever I've held power, maybe from 2011. And that's my candidature. It's on an anti-corruption issue. And I have demonstrated, and that's why I give personal examples. I don't want to give speculations. I cite my own cases where I was engaged, where I felt that a wrong decision was about to be done. I also cite, for example, under President Michael Sata, when they were about to allocate a hospital in Chilubi at a wrong place, leaving out 80,000 people. I speak against that. How I fought and how President Michael Sata accepted my decision and the district hospital was relocated to where it should have been. So you demonstrate what you've done personally. I don't think I was ridiculing the party. I've never ridiculed the party in any way, but I accept the mistakes of the party.
Okay.
I accept the weaknesses of the party. I propose solutions how to make the party better, attractive to Zambians. Mutembo from George wants me to speak about this matter of government business. So Mutembo, there is a burning issue. The Environmental Protection Fund under the Ministry of Mines was set up in 1987. In the event that we have an environmental disaster, because mining is close to that, it can pollute rivers, as we've seen in the past, like Vedanta. It can do any of these. The mines by law, the mine houses or mining companies by law, are obliged to contribute. It's like a tax. Every year they contribute money to this fund. This fund from 1997 has accumulated to what we are hearing up to $35 million. And the fund has grown so much that government in 2020 under President Lungu decided that we need to take this fund to a fund manager who can grow it, invest the money in it, because it's a lot of money. And before that could be done, we commissioned audits on that Environmental Protection Fund, prepared its books of accounts, sanitize the process so that it is easier for a fund manager to come and take over. So recently, Ministry of Mines, following up on the work that was done by the PF after the audit, advertised for a company to pick and manage that fund. We were looking for a fund manager. And lo and behold, the company that has been given is Africa Life Insurance. It's public knowledge. Africa Life Insurance is associated with the president. He's been an owner of that company for the last 20 years with his business partners. Again, the details are clear and open. Honorable Muna Hantuba, his business associate, even in other businesses, Valentine Chitalu and others. They even have corporate partners from Botswana. So when this company won, I personally raised the question, Mr. President, the problem we go back to the issue of declaration of assets. By law, the president must declare his assets, his liabilities, his interests, his sources of income. He has done so to ECZ, but not to the public. You will remember that 3-4 months ago, Sean Tembo tried to have these assets become public to the country. He went to ECZ, he said, President Hakainde Hichilema swore in an affidavit and declared assets to you. Can you give them public to us? ECZ said, no, these documents were given to us by the president. Maybe go and ask him. He went to court. I think the court case wasn't properly structured. The court threw that matter out. Probably maybe Honorable Sean Tembo should have asked for all the candidates that participated in the 2021 elections, maybe to have their records public. Such an, the law doesn't target individuals. So maybe that legal suit wasn't properly structured. But from the moral perspective, we appeal to the president to declare his interest, to declare his sources of income, he should tell us his liabilities. Who does he owe? Which bank does he have a loan to? He should declare his assets. What companies does he own? So that we know how much he's worth now. We will know how much he's worth in 2026. It's part of an anti-corruption agenda in this country. That's why that law was crafted. We have to raise all these anti-corruption policies. I've learned in the last 2 days that the UPND, not State House, not President Hakainde Hichilema, but through low-level cadres who are saying, the president has no shares in African Life Insurance. They are informing us that he sold these shares in 2019. Well, I would like to have that conversation with the president. In our view, even the current owners, as shown, are his business associates. So did he declare interest that my colleagues, my friends? Because remember, when you are fighting corruption, you are fighting against favoritism, cronism, tribalism, nepotism. It's all these are acts of corruption. Sometimes people narrow down corruption to stealing money. It's far broader than that. Corruption is when I give my nephew a job without competition. If there's a ZESCO MD I'm looking for, I don't subject that position. I don't allow Zambians to participate. I just pick my nephew and impose him. That's an act of corruption. So we in our broader sense, when we are fighting corruption, we are fighting that. Don't give business to your friends. Don't give fertilizer contracts to your friend. It's part of corruption. So in this case, Wamtembo from George, it's a matter of serious concern, and we want State House and the President to declare interest. In our view, the tender should be cancelled and done properly. And if the President, any of his companies, or those he's associated with because of his fellow partners, are participating, can we have clear...
What's your official answer to Mr. Mtembo? Because he wants to know if the President has given, if government has awarded to a company that he owns.
We've seen the letters of offer. The award is not complete, but the company has won the tender. Under the Public Procurement Act, when you win a public tender, you have to announce to the parties that participated, you issue a letter, and to the nation that the winner of this tender is the following. So to that extent, this company associated with the president has won a tender. It hasn't been awarded yet because there's a second layer. After 10 days, it then goes to contract.
This question is ownership, Ambassador Mwamba.
I've explained.
Does the president own it?
I've explained ownership, and I've explained where our concerns are. It doesn't have to be a direct owner. In fact, if you know by law, a registered owner. Just a minute.
Ambassador, I think his question was very easy and simple. Is he an owner or not?
So it's not that simple. I can own a company without being a registered owner. I can be a beneficial owner. I can have an MOU with you, okay? But I send you to register a company at PACRA to the tax authorities and to the authorities. You'll be the registered owner, but I will be a beneficial owner, and I will have signed an agreement, a backroom agreement with lawyers, enforceable in court, that I own the company. So it's not that straightforward. It doesn't mean that if someone doesn't appear on a list. For example, there are two companies there, again associated with the president. One is Botswana and one is here. They're all associated with the president. Again, to establish that he's not the owner, you have to lift what we call a veil, so that we see who the directors are to that company that owns African Life Insurance. So it's just not that direct. But what we know, according to what UPND is telling us, he's been the owner for the last almost 30 years, until 2019 when he allegedly whether he sold, whether he gave up the shares, we don't know the circumstances. But from 2019, we noticed that the PACRA documents, he stopped appearing from 2019. We don't know the circumstances. But for me, that's not an issue. The same 4 sets of owners of the companies, you see them on President Hakainde Hichilema's other companies. For example, on Satunya Regina, a pension fund manager. You see the same structure of ownership. So it's just not that easier.
Okay. All right, Howard. Howard was simply paying you a compliment.
Thank you, Howard. I believe that you are right. We are one Zambia, one nation. And I think this is a very critical matter. Appointments are coming to levels of criticism that the president is not exercising his powers of discretion, his powers to appoint people. He's not exercising that power fairly. We think that he's abusing it. He's concentrating the appointments on certain regions, and that's been a matter of concern. I'm aware that my dear brother, Socialist President Fred Membe, came here and spoke extensively to that. But I'll end up there. The purpose of the president and presidential powers is that you exercise them to build the country, to promote unity in the country. A president, to win an election, you have to have a countrywide appeal. President Hakainde Hichilema was voted by people from Chipata, from Manza, from Kasama, other than from his strength. Even in the discharge of his duties, in the appointments, he has to promote unity. He has to promote the fabric and unity of this country. And we think that to that extent, he could not be. He's abusing those privileges where he's leaning on one side. And it's a matter of concern. So I agree with you. We are one Zambia, one nation, Howard. We need to promote the spirit of Zambia. Zambia is above all of us. And Zambia is right. It's not UPND. Zambia is not PF. Zambia is above all these entities. Zambia should be promoted.
Let's pick up another 3 calls, and then we will be able to wrap up the show, because I'm looking at our time. We have 9 minutes left. It's 0974-870-877, 0950-955-877. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening to you. What's your name?
This is Vincent.
Say your name again.
Vincent.
Vincent, please go ahead.
I do not know Ambassador Mwamba, but from the way he's talking, I actually love the way he's articulating things, and for the PF confidential, I think I can sign enough. I submit.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much, Vincent.
All right, that's a compliment for you. It's 0950-955-877 or 0974-870-877. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, sir.
Good evening to you. What's your name?
This is Joe.
All right, Joe, please go ahead. We have Ambassador Mwamba in studio.
Yeah, I've been following Ambassador Mwamba. How are you, Ambassador Mwamba?
Very well, Joe. Thank you very much.
Tasha sana pasa Mwanda. And the party away over Mwimanime. Olipo Fiva Virina, the Mount Samba. The rest could be the meaning now. So I'm forward to see one of you emerge the winner. Thank you.
All right. It's 0950-955-877, 0974-870-877. We'd like to hear from you this evening. What you have to say. We have Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba in studio. If you want to be part of this conversation, give us a call. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, how are you doing? What's your name?
This is Kelvin.
Kelvin, please go ahead.
Mr. Mwamba, how are you?
Very well, Kevin. Thank you very much for calling.
Thank you very much. I'm Mkamba Moshe wa boss. And then Mabene Makamba wa okay, Zambia said the motion and kulingana ma appointment of president. Then please.
Okay, well, Kelvin, Zikomo. I want to throw in one more question there to you. Because in 2021, the Zambian people outrightly rejected the PF, as evidenced by the huge defeat of 2.8 million votes against 1.8 million. That's almost a million votes difference. What gives you the confidence that you have rebranded that the Zambians will accept you after rejecting you in 2021? Besides, this has never happened in the history of Zambia, seeing a huge margin like that, and the outcome of this election. So what's giving you the confidence as the PF?
For us, we learn from democracies where we've borrowed. The Republicans can lose. They go back to the drawing table, reorganize, look at policies that could have made Americans reject them, and they come back. And they rebrand and they face the Americans once again. We made some mistakes as a Patriotic Front, and we think that our work far outweighs our mistakes. The Zambians wanted a better economy. The economy is far worse than it was. The Zambians didn't want cadres in markets and bus stops. The cadres are back in markets and bus stops. You've seen cadres back grabbing land. They're even issuing title deeds to themselves. Zambians want employment. As issues of employment been attended to, the young people wanted certain things to be done. And I shudder when I see the UPND repeat the mistakes we are ourselves, as we are rebranding, are running away. They are going back to issues of corruption, issues of cadreism, abuse of law enforcement agencies to punish your opponents. Zambians are watching. Zambians elected the UPND to resolve the crisis we had. And in my view, we have the worst economic situation that we've had in the last 30 years, high cost of living. The last 30 years is the worst. Look at the price of fuel. It was at 15 kwacha, it's at 27 kwacha. They have work to do. They have a country to rebuild, but they're making it worse. And the measures that they are deploying, they think that the IMF will resolve the issues. They think that foreign investment will resolve the issues. And now Bank of Zambia is acting very desperately. They are even reducing money supply in the economy. So you can see that the solutions they are deploying to the crisis they found in 2021 might leave this country worse. Zambians condemned tribalism. They said maybe appointments are just coming from maybe 3-4 provinces. You see them repeated even with a vengeance, appointments again. So if the UPND is not learning from what Zambians have been saying, learning from the mistakes that the PF made, the Zambians might be forced to choose a better devil. The devil they know, who's PF, who promotes development, who brings food to your table, who lowers cost of living, who manages the economy in the manner that the PF managed it. Here, educated, exposed persons having an economy far worse than they found it. So, can Zambians trust again? It depends with what we do. Like the process of rebranding. Can the process of rebranding work? The process to bring new leadership to the fore. Who Zambians can trust again? If we go back to people they rejected, who Zambians accept us, they'll say, Mwawafe Chimochino. Zambians want to see a difference, but they believe that the PF is part of the democracy. They want a strong PF to provide checks and balances to the UPND. If the UPND is left alone as a strong party and strong government, we'll have a dictatorship. So we have to grow the opposition to counter the works of government.
Ambassador, what makes you the best candidate, and why should delegates at the conference entrust you with PF presidency?
Very difficult question. Difficult for self-promotion to promote, myself. But it's very simple. I think I've been privileged to be well experienced. I was permanent secretary in Northern Province. I was permanent secretary in Eastern Province. I was permanent secretary in Western Province. I was permanent secretary at Ministry of Information and Broadcasting Services. I've been High Commissioner to South Africa, Zambia's High Commissioner to South Africa. I have been Zambia's ambassador to Ethiopia. I've been permanent representative to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. I've been a permanent representative to the African Union. The wealth of experience I bring locally and internationally. I might not be a good politician, but I'm one that can help this country and can help our party win elections.
Ambassador Mwamba, I'd like to thank you very much for coming through to be on the headlines.
Thank you, PZ, and thank you to the management of Hot FM and to the producer and to Kwangu. Please greet her for me.
All right, thank you very much. There you have it. That's our show for today. We're back next week, Wednesday, with another exciting edition of Beyond the Headlines right here on your hot station, number one for news and entertainment. If you missed the program, now be sure to catch it live, or be sure to catch a repeat on our Facebook page, which was live, and you'll be able to follow all the comments, all the conversations that we had with Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba right here on Hot FM. Until next week, Wednesday, it's goodbye for now, but do enjoy Radio After 6 with Nono Zaza.
Why does it matter? What's important? How do we